When I meet people, they often ask me how many children I have. I always say 4. 3 of them are still alive. My oldest son, Avraham David, was murdered. A terrorist armed with an assault rifle had entered the yeshiva complex. He shot 2 in outside courtyard. My son and 4 others ran into the stacks of the library where they were sitting. The terrorists proceeded to move from stack to stack to stack, shooting the teenagers who were huddled there. No parent can prepare themselves for the life-changing events of having a child shot down in cold blood when his greatest crime was sitting in a Jerusalem library reading a book.
15 years ago, my son, Koby, who was a 13-year-old boy who grew up in America, went for a hike with his friend Yosef Ishran near our home. They stood at the door, and Koby was wearing his baseball cap and a backpack. Turned around and they said, "Lihitraot," which means "see you later." I said, "Shalom," which means peace and goodbye. Unfortunately, I was right and he was wrong, because I never saw him again. The 2 boys were trapped in a small cave by 4 or 5 Palestinian terrorists and beaten to death with boulders the size of bowling balls. It was a very brutal crime. The boys' blood was smeared on the walls. There was a search party out, and we were up all night. A woman came to us and told us that the boys had been found murdered in a cave about 500 yards from where we stood. Sherry fell to the ground. I walked over to a corner and kicked a chair, came back and looked down at Sherry, and she looked up at me and said, "How are we going to get through this?"
I can just use words and sentences, but that they don't reflect the brokenness of losing a child to terror.
My mother was Sarah Blaustein. On May 29, 2001, she and her husband and some other passengers went to Jerusalem for the day. On the main highway road from Efrat to Jerusalem, a car full of terrorists disguising themselves as Israelis, using an Israeli car, opened fire on their car as they drove past them. They fired many, many bullets into the car. My mother was shot twice in the back of her head and was immediately killed. Another passenger in her car, a 19-year-old girl who was in the midst of her national service to our country, was also killed. And other passengers were very seriously wounded.
In October 2015, my father, Richard Lakin, was riding on a public bus in Jerusalem on his way home from a doctor's appointment. He was a 76-year-old retired elementary school principal, just going for a checkup at his doctor's. 2 terrorists boarded the bus, began shooting people. They shot my father in the head. After he fell to the ground, the other terrorists took out a knife and started stabbing him in the head, in the face, the stomach. They slit him down the middle, severing most of his vital organs. He spent almost 2 weeks in intensive care at Hadassah Hospital unconscious before passing away.